And I think that's the single most important thing here is for all of you who feel tired, you're at a crossroads and you have to decide, am I going to quit or am I going to push through? And then started to think about everybody who's ever completed a marathon. I don't know if you've ever talked to someone who's completed a marathon. You really should, because I've never heard anybody say I completed the marathon and it was the worst thing I ever did. Honestly, I've never heard that. Now, again, I would never do that because maybe I would say that. I don't know. Might say it was the most boring thing I ever did, but talk to anyone who has ever finished a marathon. It's a milestone in their lives. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast. And today is what we call a None of Your Business short. Now, we've done many of these in the past, but we've been on such a roll with so many guests who have wanted to come on this show and share valuable content with you that we've kind of put these to the side. And Lacey and I had a conversation and realized that we wanted to introduce you to some of these shorts. Now, these are shorter format podcasts without guests. And sometimes it might just be me speaking and sharing some thoughts. And sometimes Lacey and I will come on and share some thoughts with you. If there's ever any topics that you would love to see us tackle, shoot me an email at Shawn@blackdiamondclub.com. We would love to hear your thoughts on what you're struggling with and what you are working on. Today, I want to talk about talk to and about all of you who feel tired. This morning I woke up early and I went to the gym feeling really, really good about getting my workout in. And no sooner had I done one set that I really began to feel tired. And I even started to try and convince myself that maybe I should just call it a day. Maybe I should cut it short and just go home. Maybe I didn't get enough rest last night, or maybe my body wasn't fully recovered. Then I started thinking. I started thinking about people that do incredible things. And what came to mind for me was people who run marathons. Now, I am not a runner. I do love to exercise, but I don't really love cardio. I kind of put it in the box of, like movies. I don't love watching movies. People tell me all the time, hey, have you seen this movie or that movie? And usually the answer is no, because, movies are long. Cardio is long and you're just sitting there. Running is probably one of the most boring things that I could think of doing. But, on a treadmill or an exercise bike, I do have a Peloton, but it's still super boring because you're just sitting there and you're getting your cardio in, at least with lifting weights or doing some functional training. Like there's movement and there's things going on and you've got to get the equipment and move from here to there. But I was thinking about people that run in marathons, and I was thinking how much training is involved. I have several friends that have run marathons, and the amount of training and preparation that goes into that is absolutely incredible. I mean, you don't just wake up and decide to run a marathon. You have to plan for this. It takes a great degree of planning. I'm always fascinated about that process. Sometimes you run shorter distances. So you don't just run marathons over and over in an effort to make your time get faster. You run shorter distances, you run longer distances. Your training cycle is important. Your equipment is important. Always fascinated too about this goo that marathon runners consume during a race to keep their body nourished and hydrated. And I was thinking about, I had a friend recently that qualified for the Boston Marathon. And what an accomplishment. I mean, you have to qualify to be in it. Again, you can't just sign up and decide that you're going to run in the Boston Marathon. So this is a whole journey in and of itself. But then I was thinking about race day. On race day, you wake up, you probably are full of adrenaline, full of excitement, full of anticipation. You're super pumped as you're standing amongst everybody getting ready to start that race. And then, they start the race and off you go. And you have to be conscious that you don't run too fast. You don't want to run yourself out in the first, 5 miles. And so you get going. And I was thinking, like, this is an awful lot like people in business. So many of us dream of owning our own business, and we are like, man, I do all the prep. Many of you had to go to school and pass exams, but then you have to think about the business and you put together maybe a business plan. You get all of your equipment together. And during all of that preparation, I mean, you have nothing but the best in mind or a vision for the absolute best of how that's going to work out for you. Then opening day, and probably if you've done your homework and you've done your preparation, things get off to a really good start. People are coming in and you're like, wow, I really can see this business taking off. And I think for those of you who are already in business, just go back and think of how you felt when you started your business. I mean, very few successful businesses get off to a bad start and come back. Now, I'm not saying that can never happen, but usually you get off to a tremendous start and you're excited and you're like, this is going to be absolutely phenomenal. But then something happens. Just like in the marathon, I would imagine, I've never run a marathon again, but I would imagine it's, probably 1/3 to 2/3 of the way inside that, middle third, you start to feel tired. And I've talked to many people who have talked about this. You feel that tiredness and you're like, I'm getting tired. Your pace starts to slow. And then thoughts of doubt begin to creep in. You begin to question your preparation, your training. You begin to question everything about it. I would think you'd probably even question, do you have the right shoes on? Did I get the right shoes? And I know that's a pretty big deal. If you're going to run a marathon, people put a lot of thought into their footwear, it's fitted and all of those things. And I was thinking, man, that's very much like all of us who are in business, probably in the middle third of the way towards your goal, whatever that is. And it's different for everybody. I know that some of you, you want to have a certain amount of revenue. Others of you want to impact a certain amount of lives. Others of you have other goals, and there's nothing wrong with those. Some of them are materialistic. You want a car, you want a private jet. Others of you aspire for things in your family. You want to pay for your kids' education, whatever that goal is. I'm telling you that in between the 1/3 and the 2/3 mark, you're probably going to start to feel tired. Now, my work as a consultant is filled with people who are constantly telling me that they feel tired. Another way this shows up is overwhelm. I think that, tired and overwhelmed kind of fall into the same boat. I would imagine that at the 1/3 mark in a marathon, some people would describe their feelings as overwhelmed. You begin to question, why am I doing this? In business, we begin to question a lot of things about our business. No, don't forget that we started out really, really great. And we have a track record of progress and growth, but then all of a sudden doubt creeps in when we start to think, maybe I should change up my internet strategy or social media. Am I on the right platforms? Should I hire someone to help me? Or maybe I need a new coach. The coach that got me here may not be the coach that can get me there. And all of those things are worthy thoughts. But we have to question sometimes as I begin to feel tired. I begin to question a lot of things. And sometimes you ask yourself, am I just tired? Or is it that what I'm doing is wrong? And so I think that when you have trained for a marathon, and the reason why I like this is because it's a singular focus. You're there to run the 26 plus miles that it takes to complete the marathon. And it's very clear what we're doing. 24 does not get the job done. Running amazingly fast for 13 miles and then walking the last 13 also will not get the job done. But regardless, the goal is to get to the finish line. So you set your goals, and about 1/3 to 2/3 of the way there, we begin to question, are we doing the right thing? This is this moment that many runners describe, and sometimes they talk about getting a second wind. But what I've noticed about the second wind is really, it's just that they didn't quit. Because when asking people who decided to push through, which by the way, it's very important, many people actually do quit when they get tired. the number of people that do not complete a marathon, even something like the Boston Marathon, is quite alarming considering all of the preparation that goes into being there in the first place, and the number of businesses that simply close their doors, not due to circumstances beyond their control, but because they just didn't anticipate being that tired, is alarming. So, what happens is if you decide to push through, and so this message today is really for all of you who feel tired. One of the key things that you need to understand is that you don't get less tired. What I've noticed is that last two thirds or that last one third of the marathon, when I ask people that have run a marathon, they say they got their second win, but really what that means is that they didn't quit. Because when I asked them, oh, so when you got your second win, you were no longer tired? They say, no, I was still tired, but I was able to push through it. And I think that's the single most important thing here is for all of you who feel tired, you're at a crossroads and you have to decide, am I going to quit or am I going to push through? And then started to think about everybody who's ever completed a marathon. I don't know if you've ever talked to someone who's completed a marathon. You really should, because I've never heard anybody say I completed the marathon and it was the worst thing I ever did. Honestly, I've never heard that. Now, again, I would never do that because maybe I would say that. I don't know. Might say it was the most boring thing I ever did, but talk to anyone who has ever finished a marathon. It's a milestone in their lives. So what happens is we start out charged up, then we get tired. Then we decide that we're going to push through that tired and we get more tired. Look at the finish line, and we've all seen these videos of people finishing, I mean, professionals finishing a marathon and barely able to get across that finish line. I mean, they are running on absolute empty. They're just absolutely gassed. And yet they get across that finish line. One of the strangest things that I've noticed, and I've seen this in bicycle racing as well, is somehow they could barely run the 100 meters prior to the finish line. They hit the finish line, and yes, they're tired, but all of a sudden, they shift to a feeling of being elated. Their friends and family come around and they all hug. I mean, I would think that the majority of people who finish the marathon would just fall down on the ground, be put on a stretcher, and then taken to a hotel or to their homes where they would just sleep. But somehow they get revitalized again. They have a sense of accomplishment and they realized that all of that preparation, all of that training had come together for that one moment. And then, and only then, it all makes sense. You know, so many times in business, the reason why we start to stumble is because we feel tired. And the reason why we quit is because we cannot make sense of what it is that we're doing. So today on this None of Your Business Short, I want to encourage all of you, hopefully inspire you to keep going. You know, Lacey and I, we run a business. Lacey and I get tired. Usually when we start a business, we're super excited and elated because we see the vision and the promise of what that business can do. Then we open the business and it starts off great and we're like, this is going to be fantastic. And then tiredness sets in. Now, Lacey and I are conditioned to know that we must push through. But you know, one of the things too that I've also heard about marathons is around that 1/3 or halfway point when you start feeling tired, you notice other people that are pacing with you and you realize that they're tired too. And you start running with them. I've had so many people tell me, like, I've made friends or I connected with someone that I didn't even know. You know, there's thousands of people, and I started running with them, and we supported each other at that point. Look, Lacey and I, we get tired. We might be tired right now, depending on when you are listening to this podcast. And I just want to encourage you. I want you to know that we are here for you. If you'd love to run a couple miles with us, reach out to us. Again, hit me up at Shawn@blackdiamondclub.com. Let me know that you're tired. We'll run a couple miles together. And heck, you might even feel so energized that you start outpacing me. Well, that, after all, is the point. But when we get to the finish line, I promise you this, that you will have a clarity about why you push through the pain, the difficulty, and the tiredness. It will all be worth it. You know, I say that clarity comes as a result of sacrifice. And for every single one of you listening who is thinking, man, I am tired, I am telling you that the sacrifice will be well worth it. but it will only be worth it if you get to the finish line. I mean, imagine just stopping 100 yards short and just walking off the course at the Boston Marathon. What a tragedy that would be. So many of you are so close, you just don't realize it, because unlike the Boston Marathon, which has a clearly defined finish line, making $1 million or buying that car or sending your kid to college or buying your parents a house is an ill-defined stopping point. But here's what happens. As soon as you reach that point, you will be revitalized, re-energized, and I promise you this, you won't feel tired anymore. I hope that this resonates with you. If it did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review. We promise you we're going to be dropping more of these shorts in for you. I know that you guys love the interviews and we find it extremely valuable ourselves, but we want to take these short pauses to speak to you about what you might be dealing with specifically in your life. Again, reach out to me. Let me know what you would like for us to cover. Lacey and I have run many marathons in our lives. We've run many businesses. We've learned many lessons. The main thing that I can tell you about us is that we will push through that tiredness. Doesn't mean that we're not tired. It doesn't mean that we have it all figured out. It just means that we are absolutely committed to making it to that finish line. And I hope that you are as well. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this None of Your Business short. Don't forget, we'll be back again next week with a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast.